Hey y'all, welcome back to the Woman's Hustle, Thrills and Spills of Entrepreneurship. It's your girl Kisha back with another dope session. Listen, if you haven't already, season 2 has been on fire. So I need you to make sure you have subscribed to Upgraded Mindsets Media. And if you're listening audio wise, then make sure you have favorited the Woman's Hustle so you are not missing these amazing episodes. All right. Listen, today's is going to be no different. I have been having conversations with this phenomenal queen. And let me tell you, you guys are going to get such a good kick out of this. But I think it's also going to be a conversation that we probably don't talk about enough. So I'm definitely excited to bring her on. And I'm going to allow her the honor of introducing herself. Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. I'm so excited. Thank you for the
Me
wonderful
too.
intro. So, hello, everyone. My name is Kat. Don't worry about that last name because everyone has a hard time pronouncing it. But I am a speaker. I'm a podcast host myself, but also a community builder. I run a community called The Dragon Reclaimed, and it's all focused around my backstory, which I know we'll get into. 10 years being in a domestic abusive relationship and how we as individuals go through traumas and situations throughout our entire life. However, we can choose not to allow that to be who we are, but just be a piece of us and reclaim the life that we choose.
Absolutely. And y'all know I am all about reclaiming, transformation, shifting, but also we talk about the raw and uncut, the thrills and the spills. When we are on our entrepreneurial journeys, whatever it is, whether we're speaking, advocating, community, we also have to make sure that we are being mindful of ourselves. So me and Kat are going to talk more about that today. And I'm just super excited because these are sensitive conversations that I feel like us as women do not have enough. Y'all know I talk about how we try to suppress and keep everything inside and claim that strong woman stigma where we are kind of trying to dismantle that today. All right. So, Kat, please share a little bit more about what got you to what you are doing today, advocating in the amazing way that you are.
Oh, thank you. It's really interesting when you go through some of your own things and you feel like no one around you would understand if you were to tell them. So instead, you kind of like stuff it down in a box, pretend it didn't happen, move on with life, right? Especially
Ooh,
if you're a parent. That's another layer of like, I don't have time for this because I've got kids to raise and things like that. That's exactly what I did.
yeah.
For years. So after getting out of a 10-year abusive relationship, my boys were 10 and 7 at that time. And when I left, I did exactly that. I made sure they were taken care of. And then I put all of my things in a box, stuffed it away because I had to continue working and make sure I could provide for
Right.
them. That began the slow unravel of my life. And several years later, standing in the kitchen with my oldest one, who's about 14 at that time, we were eye to eye
Yeah.
yelling at each other. And it was one of the first times in my life that I didn't recognize my son for a split second as my son, but
Yeah.
like as if it was
Wow.
a stranger that I was ready to fight. And that was kind of that moment of maybe it's not just my kid becoming a teenager. Maybe I
Yeah.
need to work through some things. And so I quickly dove into books, podcasts, courses, like all the things I could find around trauma and healing and understanding what on earth was going on because I never had conversations around what it looked like to one, even be in an abusive situation, and two, what the heck did healing meant? In my opinion, if you got out of it, you're good. You moved on to the next thing, and
Right.
that's
Right.
right. That's
That.
the end. And so it was this slow unpeeling of an onion of trying to figure out all of these layers. And I'm still discovering those layers to this
I'm
day.
sure.
But it quickly rerouted my entire perception of this. I thought the world was just happening to me and crap was going wrong for no reason to I actually get to choose how I want my day to be, how I want my weeks to be, what I allow to frustrate me, what I allow to let go. And it actually started with me wanting to just share the things that were working for me. And the more that I shared, the more that people asked questions. And then I decided to make a bold move. And instead of privately sharing with individuals about things that I had been through, I was going to share it publicly and just see who resonated with it. And to my surprise, so many people connected with my story. And I was like, all right, this
Yeah.
is what I should be doing. The more that we share, the more that people realize they're not alone. And that was the thing I kept hearing. I didn't know anybody went through this. I thought that this was just something that I
Yep.
experienced. I didn't know that you knew how to feel that way. And I had a light bulb moment about 3 years ago of I have always been a person to stand up for other people, even as a
Yeah.
teenager, even in grade school. Like I was the person to stand up to the bully. I was the one to tell people when it was unfair. And it was in that moment that I realized I believe that I am meant to help tell the story of mine and others that have been in traumatic situations or dealt with abuse and share it with the world for us to understand that it's more common, unfortunately, than what we think. And there's also a relief in that and knowing that it's not just you.
Yeah. Big relief. Big relief. Oh my God, Kat. That everything that you just talked about is just like pew, pew. Like, because everything is so relatable. I think that we do that. That suppression is like the kingpin, right? That's the number one thing that we do. But it just sounds like you really like establish that purpose. And that is what so many of us lack because we are in those old methods. And that mindset shift that you went from this to this, because you were like, hey, this is not a woe is me anymore. This is I have control over my situations and I'm going to act and make sure that I am intentionally shifting those things. At the same time,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting too, because, when you start deciding to
yeah,
shift how you want to see life, that's where the ultimate control is. I
yeah,
think that for me, for the longest time, control was what I controlled in my life, my
yeah.
daily schedule, my routine with my kids on the weekend, like all of those things. And then when one of those got out of order, girl, it was
Mm.
like the world blew up.
Okay, like a
But
whole domino effect, right?
just like all of it. And then it was like, even if one or two things went right, there was no way to pay attention to that because I was
No.
so caught up in what I wasn't able to control. So it was really interesting learning this psychology of the brain
Yeah,
and the way that the word control is actually utilized versus how we use it in society, and having more control over you as an individual and what you choose to think and what you choose to
mhm.
feel. That is the ultimate control. And then when life is lifing,
Whew.
which it still does,
Hey,
right?
always, always.
It's it's easier to handle those hard moments, right? I don't beat myself up when I'm having a hard day. I don't lose absolute control when things just completely fall apart.
Yeah,
It's a lot easier to catch the ball of yarn that like took off down the road and wind
right.
it back up, right? A lot quicker than just watching it go and pulling on the string as it continues to unravel more. It's a really interesting shift. And I will say that being someone that has seen the dark side and now can see the light,
Yes,
one, I know what it's like. And I absolutely understand anyone listening that's like, yeah, but you don't understand how dark it can be. Yes, I
man.
do.
Yes, I
And
do.
I have had the ability to see what life can be when you choose differently. And I will tell you this, I'm never going back the other
Come
direction.
on. That's what people don't understand. I don't judge anybody when it comes to coming out of that dark side, right? But I want people to understand that you have to take action. There has to be some form of intention for you to say, you know what, I've got to get out of this. Yes, it's going to hurt. Yes, the days I don't feel like doing it, but it still has to be done because you don't want to stay there. I want
Mhm.
I want people to stop thinking that there's this magic switch that you could flip tomorrow and you're just going to be completely healed, transformed, and just disciplined and actionable. There is a process. First, it starts with your mind, right? It starts with you again, understanding that there are changes that you need to make within. Has nothing to do with society because you got to stop letting society run your life, people. Y'all know I talk about that. Society does not run it. You have control. I don't care what's going on over here, over there, around the corner, whatever. You still have control of what it is that you want to do. But it's the importance of being intentional about how you want to see it. People are like, Keisha, I had no idea that you went through this. I know. You know why? Because I don't start with that. right? I don't kick off with woe is me. I'm kicking off letting you know that I've overcome and I'm resilient. And since I'm talking about resilient, I want to ask you, Kat, like, what do you think the difference is between survival and resilience? Because I actually, when talking with women, coaching them and whatever, I noticed that they kind of put the two together and think that they kind of mean the same thing. So I'd love for you to share your perspective on that.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so resilience versus survival.
Yeah.
I think that survival is something that our brains automatically choose for us to continue to keep us safe in whatever situation that we're in. Resilience, I think, comes from when you recognize that you're in that survival space and then make the choice to choose to do something different and continue pushing forward, right? Because life can just keep hitting you. And I know that that happened to me for a really long time where it felt like every which way I turned, I was getting smacked in the face, right? But instead of me rolling with the punches and falling down on the ground and just saying, like, I can't do this anymore,
Mhm.
I would continue to pick myself back up. So resilience to me is when you keep getting hit and you choose to pick yourself back up,
Yeah.
even in the hard days. But survival, I think that that sometimes, or at least for me, a lot of times was more of an instinctual thing. I didn't really get to choose that. It
Mhm.
became like things were so overwhelming that the brain was like, all right, I'm going to put you in the back seat and I'm just going to kind of take over for a moment. Right. And a lot of times, like, we don't make best decisions when we're in that space. Or we think that we're pushing through, but what we're doing is we're pushing through and making the same decisions to keep us in the same cycle that we don't want to be in.
Yeah, that is. Let's talk about as we step into the business, the branding side of things, because I think when we start businesses, people feel like that we just put all of those things over here and we don't still have to deal with those things. And if
Mhm.
anything, we need to be dealing with them even more because now we've incorporated a whole business, a whole brand. How are you maneuvering, on your healing journey as you continue to build with the businesses? How do you handle your triggers and things like that? Because we got them. I know I got them. I don't know about y'all, but I
Mhm.
got triggers still, baby, and they be very loud sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're creating a business versus a 9 to 5, it's a very different world to be in. It's also
Fact.
easier to get distracted. It's easier to put things forward that you think are important that really aren't, right? You're kind of running around with your head cut off, like, I don't know, I think that somebody
Yes.
said this and we're going to try this. So, and there's so much noise
Yeah.
out there that it makes it even more difficult to like really hone in on what's best for you. And I think that
Mhm.
this goes for business, but this also goes for your healing journey as well.
Absolutely.
There is so much noise, right? And you can Google anything and have it in the palm of your hand, but it doesn't always mean that one, it's correct, or two, that it's going to work for you.
Right.
So that's the biggest thing is in the business sense, learning that just because someone did it one way and they made $1 million does not mean it's going to work for me.
Come
And
on.
if I try it and it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It just means I don't operate the same.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite things to do is take pieces from people and things that they're doing and go, ooh, I think I want to try that. And then giving myself the space to try it. And I don't mean 30 days, right? Like, you've got to
Right.
give yourself some space
Right.
to actually try it, to implement it, to see what's
Fact.
going to happen. And then from there, decide like, okay, is this like completely and totally exhausting? Do I like the way that this feels? Am I starting to see
Mhm.
some traction? Or is this like absolutely not? It's completely out, right? I think that you have to be able to constantly look at your business from a 30,000-foot view and look at
Mhm.
all of the pieces and components and then decide, yes, you can buy a course. Yes, you can read a book. Yes, you can have a
Y'all
coach
got
and
too many
stuff.
free resources as it is. Too many. Y'all done
Yeah.
downloaded too many. Y'all on
And
too many lists. Go ahead.
absolutely. You get in this, again, you get in this cycle where it's
Yep.
almost like you're trying to survive in building your business versus pushing through to build your business.
Right.
And you keep looking for the easy button. And I hate to tell you, but there is no easy button that we can press in any form
At
or realm of our
all.
life,
At
right?
all.
Business, personal, working a 9 to 5, being a parent. Like, there is no easy button. If that was the case, everybody would already.
And
That's the reason why people keep trying to sell you on the easy button, because
it's
there
fact.
isn't an actual way to do it.
Yep.
And when you can learn to separate yourself from somebody else's journey and say, okay, that's great that that worked for them. That sounds like an absolute nightmare to me. Cool. Then go a different direction.
Yeah.
You have to learn to take what resonates best for you and leave the rest. And that was one of the key components in business and in dealing with healing, right? Especially when you are, like you said, you're dealing with triggers, you're dealing with the things that still come up, you're dealing with the emotional damage that's there. Grace has been the biggest part of my life, right? There have been days where I'm like, I have 10,000 things to get done and I should have already done this. And then I will sit down and say, okay, I'm completely overwhelmed. I can tell that I'm overwhelmed, which also means absolutely nothing is going to get done.
Right.
And I will sit down and write me a list from A to Z. And then in that list, I will say, okay, what are my 4 priorities for today? What do I have to get done that I think will move the needle forward or needs to be handled because I've been putting it off, and getting it done would make me feel lighter, right? And then I will list out those priorities and that becomes the focus. Absolutely nothing else.
I love
And if
it.
I get done and I want to move more, I will do it. But if I don't, because I'm still overwhelmed, I can then at least sit down and say, you know what? I'm so proud of you because you got those things
Exactly.
done.
I
And you
love that.
start over the next day with a brand new breath. And then you can start chipping away at that list. And what's interesting too is when you start looking at that list and learning to prioritize, you'll realize like, okay, I don't really have to answer my emails right now. That's not really a priority, right? I don't have to attend this class. It looks like there's a replay and I really just kind of wanted to learn about it, but I don't know what it's going to do. Cool. I'm just going to take the replay and I can sit and watch that one evening instead of watching TV. You've got to learn to do that for yourself instead of beating yourself up for not getting the 50 things done that you needed that day, because you are going to have hard days like that. And you and I have been talking about this recently. I have a whole situation behind
Right.
closed doors right now where my
Absolutely.
abusive ex has shown up in my life 12 years later, causing a scene. And we met, Kisha, and I was like,
Yeah.
I'm having a moment.
Right.
And
Yep.
I want to chat, but I probably don't have the capacity to be fully here. And
Absolutely.
I think that learning that that is okay, instead of feeling like we have to fully play out 1000% of the time
Yes.
every single day, which is not how we operate to begin with, is a lifesaver. And being able to admit when you need some space or you're not okay, or if you need to reschedule that networking call because I just really don't have the bandwidth, that's cool. And most of the time, guess what? The person on the other side probably needed that break anyway.
I'm
I can't
telling
tell you
you.
how many times that has happened
Yeah. It's
where
that.
I rescheduled and someone will say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I actually wasn't sure if I was going to make it anyway.
Especially when it comes to like podcasting, like I tell people, like, I don't want to sound flighty, but if I am not in a mental capacity to show up, record, I will definitely let that person know. But I'm also going to be transparent and say, hey, I'm not in a mental capacity to put, to record today. I apologize. Here's the reschedule link, and I'll be honest, some have rescheduled and some haven't. But I look at that like, apparently it wasn't aligned for you to be on the show, because I am all about self-prioritization. I definitely appreciate people's time, but I'm telling you right now, my time is the number one priority because that's what I have trained myself to be. So I agree with you 100% on that. Be okay with rescheduling that meeting. And if it don't get rescheduled, it wasn't meant. That's how I look at it, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to show up at 40% and just to satisfy somebody else. And I'm just not doing it. So it kind of rolls into like your systems and boundaries. Building requires structuring. Structuring requires scheduling. So what does that look like for you? Get a notebook. Let me see. Do y'all see this little $1.25 notebook that like has stuff sitting out of it? I have, even though we have our digital calendars and whatever else, I still write things down every single day because I go through it. I know that everything that I'm doing, some things I've been blessed to be able to delegate in the business, but some things I'm still doing myself. And guess what? I got calendars, notebooks, digital, all of that requires that structure. It requires that structure. So if you don't have structure in your business and you wonder why you're overwhelmed, triggered, that anxiety is getting to you and you're not getting nothing done, these are the conversations you need to be having with yourself. And you need to be having the conversations maybe even with somebody else so you can go ahead and get that structure together that you need. Because it's what is healing looking like for you these days, Kat?
Healing these days are very different than it was in the beginning.
I
You
bet.
know, in the beginning, it was a lot more dedication to me and learning to kind of let go of all the things instead of holding all the balls at one time, right?
Right.
Now it's having a toolbox of things that I know work for me depending on a situation or a day that I'm having, right? So there may be days where I'm just having a bomb ass week and I get through my week and I'm doing great. I
Mhm.
have a wonderful weekend. And all I really need is a little bit of me time in the morning, a little bit of me time in the evening, maybe sitting outside in the sun over the weekend. Like that
Yes.
is my healing space. That's my coming back to me. That's my reset, right? And then there are other times where it's a little bit more intense. Whereas, like what I'm dealing with right now, I'm working to the best of my ability on the days that I can. And on the days where I get up and go, I don't even know how to start my day. I take it very, very slow. And
Yeah.
sometimes that is putting myself in a different environment so I can kind of plug in and get things done because
Right.
sometimes being in the same space isn't helpful, or at least for me. So I'll go and sit outside or I'll go to a coffee shop or I will do most important tasks first thing in the morning because
Mhm.
that's when I have the most energy. That way I
Right.
know that by the time my brain is like, we can't anymore, you've used us to our capacity. I know I don't have to do anything for the rest of the day if I don't want to. But if
Mhm.
I can sit down and do small, minute, behind the scenes things. Sometimes it's putting music on in the background or putting noise canceling headphones on and shutting everything else
Yeah.
out and listening to something while I'm getting stuff done or taking a dance break, right? Is all over the place. And I think
Yeah.
that that's kind of the coolest thing about healing is it doesn't have to look the same on a day to
Yes.
day. It doesn't have to look the same in a moment to moment. It is nonlinear, which is something that I would have never believed to begin with, but I am
That's
learning wholeheartedly that it takes different tools for different things. And so building that up and knowing what you really like and what really works for you is super helpful when you get into spaces of I need to kind of focus on me.
I think what people just have to realize is goes back to what you said. Everything is not for everybody. You've got to create and build that toolkit. Create your toolkit, people. Personally, professionally, whether you're in leadership, still even in corporate America, because I know I have some listeners that are still there. You still have to build that resilience toolkit because it's an ongoing toolkit that you're going to always use. There's going to be different tools within it that you might only have to use one piece of that tool
Mhm.
one day. You might have 5 you gotta use the other day. So, make sure that you're
Absolutely.
building that toolkit. Before we get ready to wrap up, I wanna talk a little bit about the trauma because what I have learned in my own research and studies is everybody has experienced some form of trauma, right?
Mhm.
Some are definitely more extreme than others for sure. But I would like for you to wrap us up just kind of saying why do you believe that trauma education is essential for our personal growth, but also for our businesses? Because I think that we just don't understand the importance of making sure that that is aligned together. I'd love for you to elaborate on that.
Absolutely. Every single one of us has been through some form of trauma. For some of us, that looks like things that happen in childhood. For some of us, that may look like a relationship that maybe just kind of destroyed who you were. For me, that's more of where my trauma came from. I've really lost myself in who I really was in those moments. I think that being trauma aware and learning about it and building up a toolkit, one, it's great for you as an individual because it's going to help you move forward. It's going to help you figure out what works best for you to be more present with
Right.
yourself, which is not something that we are heavily taught, right? We're taught to be in this hustle culture, this go, 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 this space of you're never supposed to slow down, but that's the worst thing that you could do because then your emotions build up, you stuff things in boxes and everything is splitting at the seams and you don't even realize it. The
Yeah.
other side of that I think has been really helpful for me has been being so aware of those things, my movements, how my emotions fluctuate, the triggers that might set me off has also taught me to be a lot more aware and graceful
Yeah.
for others as well. right? So I don't judge people the way that I used to. I don't think of people in the way that I used to because I've let go of those beliefs that were
Yeah.
hindering me. So I've been able to be more open with people, more understanding with people. I've had the ability to ask more questions to get down to the depth and
Yeah.
understand, when someone says, "Oh, I'm totally fine." I know I can ask that question of like, "Are you sure?" Because you don't have to pretend in front of me.
Right.
So
That
it's
part.
it's being able to give other people, yeah, the opportunity to say, okay, so I don't have to pretend and this is great. Like I
Right.
can take a mask off. And it's wonderful because when you can meet people in that space, that's where real connection comes through. That's where real support, real understanding, where other people get to drop their shoulders and be like, phew, because I'm
Thank you.
exhausted right now
Thank
from doing
you.
that. So I think it's so important to be educated and to learn because it helps in two components. And the more that we can help other people, the more we end up helping ourselves as well.
Thanks. I agree. Bottom line, this is exactly why I do what I do, y'all. I started this journey and the fulfillment, I get such a sense of fulfillment just from being able to know that someone has said, "Oh, you had a guest on your show that said this." All of that gives me such a level of satisfaction and fulfillment because I know that this is something that I would have wanted back when I was going through and suppressing and things like that. And I agree with you 100% that transparency definitely builds bigger support systems. So, with that being
Absolutely.
said, I want you to share a little bit more about your new and coming up community. I'm so excited about it. Please share.
Yes, thank you. So excited. I had the opportunity to do a TEDx talk back in March of
Yes. How did
2026.
I not even talk about that? Go ahead. Thank you. I love to see it. Come on.
Yeah. And so in my TEDx, I really talk about judgment, which is a lot of what we're kind of talking about today. And
Mhm.
judgment plays a huge part in how you develop yourself, but how you also develop and how you see others. It is one of the first things that I recognize when I talked earlier about standing in front of my kid and not recognizing him as my child, and then realizing I needed to take a step back. So judgment is something that every single one of us deal with on some level somewhere, right? And when I was speaking about this, it really brought up a lot of not only emotions, but just this conversation with others that are like, oh my gosh, I haven't experienced what you have, but I relate to what it is that you talked about. And
Mhm.
I have wanted to build a community for a few years. And that was kind of that light bulb moment of this is the time. This is what people are looking for. So I launched this community called The Dragon Reclaimed. And that has a super symbolic meaning to me because the dragon, in my personal opinion, a lot of times in folklore or stories that we have been told, is this big, scary monster, right? And so we stuff it in the cave and we fight it off to pretend like it's not there or to try and get rid of it, which I do believe that that is what we do to parts of ourselves. However, if you choose to reclaim the dragon and allow her to come out of that cave, you get to see that she is elegant and powerful and full of beauty, which is what every single one of us has inside of us. So we've been taught to take the flame and smolder it out. And I want to tell you that it's time for you to come back to that flame, to
Yes.
take the spark and ignite it, because that's what we deserve to have. So in this community, we have created a safe, supportive environment where men and women can come in and learn to heal and to grow and to take off the mask to become more of them at a space and pace that also works best for them. So I have a set of rotating mentors that come in outside of myself to teach in this wonderful realm. And we focus on four specific pillars: your mind, your body, your self truth, and your reclamation, which for me is coming back to the true you, which you really met when you were a lot younger. You just kind of lost it and stuffed it in a cave because other people told you it was too scary.
Bye. All of this information will be available with Kat. All her links will be in the show notes. So you're going to be able to learn more about the community, learn more about what she's doing. Go check out her TEDx talk. Like, I love making these connections. This is what I do it for, ladies. At the end of the day, what I want you to understand is when it comes to you, when it comes to your business, your brand, the vision that you may even be having, All of these things that we talked about today matter because it's going to matter when it comes to your structure you're building. If you're trying to build with trauma at the forefront, you are creating chaos, and we want to eliminate that, right? Your journey is going to have some bumps, some bruises, it's going to have some reroutes, some potholes, all of that, guys. But understand it's still your journey, and making sure that you put that toolkit together so you can be resilient on each and every level, because you're gonna need it, baby. Cal, let them know where they can find you at on all socials, baby.
You can find me on Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook at Kat Polsinelli.
All right. I appreciate you so much for being here, girl. You know, this was a
Thank
great
you.
chat. Make sure you have subscribed to the Upgraded Mindsets Media channel. Make sure you are following Kat as well. We appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Share this with somebody that you think may be needing a little bit of conversation when it comes to trauma and resilience and overcoming, getting out of survival mode, but also making sure that you're building an aligned business with yourself. All right. I appreciate y'all. Till next time.